So thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I look very junior, but anyway, that's the job that I have. I want to thank you very much. Thanks, Susan, first of all, Susan Dunn and John Doyle and Ewan McKinney, the other members of the team here, for inviting me to come along and to have the pleasure to launch this fantastic booklet of stories, of insights, reminiscences. It's a terrific production. I want to agree with what Susan said about the real life that comes to you off these pages. Fantastic piece of work. Everybody who's been involved in it, I want to congratulate you. First of all, obviously the writers and contributors, most importantly of all, but also everybody who's involved in the production of this book. I think it's a really fantastic achievement on all your parts, and obviously also Dermot Bulger for his input and for his support in bringing this project to fruition. I'm very pleased to be here as a Minister of State in the Department of Health, because I know that our own HSE, even in all of the pressurised times and challenging times, the word we use all the time, financial difficulties that we have, that I'm glad that that the HSE is so closely involved in this centre, with this centre. I know there's some HSE people I had an opportunity to meet just when I came in. It's a very important resource here in the community. I know Dublin City Council as well, important contributors to what's done and what's achieved here. But the most important people here really are all you looking up at me. It's not me at all, but I want to say once again how pleased I am to be here and to have an opportunity to look through this book as I have done, to get a real sense of not just the personal stories and the human stories that are contained within its pages, but also the real sense of social history that you can find on reading what's there. I think the 15 different authors, 15 different writers, 15 different perspectives. I know some had more than one piece in there. Different perspective, different thoughts, memories, a lot of humour in there, a lot of joy, some sorrow, recollections that aren't always joyful, but I think for all that, very clear and very insightful for those of us who have the opportunity and the privilege to read those stories and to read those contributions. One of the things that occurs to me is that in Ireland we still, even though things have changed a huge deal, in Ireland we still have this very strong, what we call sense of place and sense of locality, and that really comes across in these stories, and it's one of the things that I think we have not lost. And that includes in the urban and the suburban areas. I grew up on the other side of the city in one of the first suburbs that was built after independence. I grew up in Marino, which was a suburb built in the late 20s and early 30s. And a lot of the suburbs out here, Crumlin, Kimmage, Drimna, they were also built in that era. And I think the Liberties, I'm not going back that far, I'm talking about more modern suburbs, which many people moved to in the 30s and 40s and set up families here. And I think it's really great to see that a lot of what was strong in the older communities, the older inner city communities, was reproduced in the suburbs and still actually lives on and has great life to it in the suburbs, actually ensured by people like yourselves in how you live, how you live in your communities and write about it and reflect about it in a book like this. I think that's incredibly important, and it's really, I suppose, reassuring. I have teenage children, well, one of them's a little bit older now, but what I often think is, do they have or will they have in the future the same sense of their locality and the place they grew up in? I live over there at the KCR, just in Terranure, the other side of the road, and I have they go to school in the local area, but I just sometimes wonder, will they have the same attachment to the place they grew up in, because they have access to different ways of contacting people, social media as it's called. They seem to know people from all over the city. There isn't the same emphasis on their local friends or the people that they meet locally. And that would be a pity if that was lost, because I think that sense of locality and sense of place and sense of community is really vital, and it's certainly celebrated in this book here today. John McGahern said, the dominant units in Irish society are the family and the locality. The idea was that the whole world would grow out from that small space. I think that idea really comes across in this book, that even though the area, the locality might be a small one physically, that was your transition to the wider world. And that was also what you came back to in the end, in terms of where you felt most comfortable, where your community was, where your family was. And that comes across so strongly, these stories and these reminiscences and these poems and pieces, fragments that are in this wonderful book. So I just want to congratulate you all once again for this terrific achievement, especially the writers, but not just the writers, because a book has to be produced, it has to be published, and you've heard already the various people who are involved in that. So thank you for inviting me. See my colleague Deputy Byrne down there, there may be others in the room that I can't see. This is the second lunchtime in a row that I've been at a function with Eric Byrne, but I want to thank you all again. Thank you for your invitation. I hope you have a good celebration here today. Unfortunately, I can't stay for long because I have to go into town to deal with legislation in the Senate. And I'd love to stay on, particularly having had a glimpse of some of the scones and cakes at the back there. So I'm sorry I'm going to miss them. But once again, thank you very much and congratulations and very best of luck.